Do you have a bad habit that you just can't shake? Well, if you're anything like me, then you might be struggling with a few things that you just wish you could get rid of. For me, that was sugar. And now I have been off of sugar for months, and I have never been able to do this before. If you want to know how you can do the same thing using 5 simple tips, stay tuned. Hey parents, welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. Do you want to raise your kids better and have a stronger marriage? Are you up late at night researching marriage and parenting tools and self-care tips? Do you start each day hoping for deeper connections and less chaos, but it ends with family arguments and going 12 different directions again? My name's Kendra, wife, mom, therapist, and growth enthusiast. It wasn't until I discovered how to fulfill my unmet needs that I was finally able to show up as my best self as a spouse and parent. I realized that by meeting my needs, I could more fully meet the needs of my family with more energy and less resentment. In this podcast, I teach parents skills like boundary setting, prioritizing personal needs, communication, and claiming ownership. Just like my clients, you'll be shocked by the improvement in your marriage, parenting, and personal life when you focus on fulfilling your important, unmet needs. Ready to prioritize yourself so you can quit mentally throat punching people? Then grab those earbuds and head outside, and let's walk and talk. Welcome back, listeners, for episode number 126. 5 simple tips for breaking habits that don't serve you. How I stopped eating sugar and resisted complacency. Now, I wanted to talk about this for a while, but I wanted to make sure that I was into this long enough to be able to share that, no, this success is legitimate. So I've been sitting on this for several months, and I finally was like, you know what? I feel really great. I feel like this is something that I can confidently say works well. So we're going to discuss that. We're going to talk about those bad habits and stepping into a life of greater purpose and fulfillment. Not only that, but we're going to explore how to navigate that resistance and pushback from others when we're trying to make those changes, and unapologetically pursue our greatness and push past that mediocrity. But before I do, let's talk about one-on-one coaching and those coming courses. Remember, they are right around the corner. They should be released January 1st. That is my goal, and I'm working with my new team to help me make that a reality. But we have these 3 courses that will really help take your life to the next level. So that's for personal growth, and that's for marriage and parenting. And they just build upon each other to help you move up Maslow's hierarchy and move from those basic needs to those growth needs and into greater fulfillment and joy in your life. If you just feel like you're stagnant and you're feeling restless and you're just not living up to your true potential, then this is going to help you take that to the next level. Because unless you invest in yourself and make changes different than before, you're going to stay stagnant and you're not going to do the things that really bring lasting change. This is beyond thinking more positively and just thinking some nice thoughts a couple times a day. This is proactive steps each week for 12 weeks to help you transform your life. So stay tuned for more details coming on that. Are you ready for the training for the day? So like I said a minute ago, we're talking about the transformative journey of eliminating those bad habits that no longer serve us. I want to start with a quote, and I'm going to butcher all of these names. All of the quotes that I found today have really hard names. So maybe I'll just say the first name and look in the show notes. But this is by Ernest. We're going to just say that. Do not go for conformity that breeds mediocrity. Choose instead to stand for transformation that not only transforms lives, but true purpose and living as well. So what does that mean? It means that when we really push back against conformity, then we will be able to shed that skin of mediocrity. And not only that, but we'll gain that true purpose and that higher living. So if that's what you want, that's what we're going to talk about today. Not just about eliminating bad habits and getting rid of things like sugar potentially, but the why behind it and taking our lives to the next level. Let me start by sharing my own story of sugar and my why. So I may have shared aspects of this before, I can't remember, but my Achilles heel has always been sugar. I love bakeries. I love fancy desserts. Especially, I love anything that is a new experience. I can't think of anything more beautiful than being in a foreign country and trying something I've never tried before that's a dessert, and I'm in a bakery and everything's new and unique and beautiful. That's my happy place. You can imagine why it's very hard for me to not have sugar. Well, I have it way too much, and I'm not so much like a candy person or like having all these heavily processed treats. It's not so much that, but I always want to make cookies, or I want my kids to make cookies more likely. And I want to have that delicious thing at the end of the day, honestly, to escape from my tiredness and overwhelm. But at the end of the night, in a family of 7 people, I just want my happy place at the end of the day. When it started to affect the rest of my life in other ways, I started to question whether this was best for me and becoming my highest self. So I started to get really bad tennis elbow, which I thought was just from playing a lot of pickleball, because once I started to hit a lot harder, I noticed that it was really hurting. And so I tried my best to not play as much. And honestly, I haven't played for almost 2 months, and it breaks my heart. But this elbow pain just was not going away. And I realized even though I stopped playing pickleball, I was not having that pain go away. Honestly, it even got worse in some ways. So I did not know what to do. Later, I realized it was inflammation and also tendinitis. I've been working harder, longer hours, trying to ramp up the business and doing everything with that since my husband's job didn't pan out the way we expected. And that was not something I really anticipated, but I have been more sedentary than before. And my arm is always bent in like 90 degrees, whether I'm on my phone or using the mouse or playing pickleball, whatever it is, it's always bent. I even sleep that way. So in my right arm, it's been really hurting. Well, what does that have to do with sugar? As I was researching it and things that I know myself from my background with personal training and even just my interest in all things wellness and all the podcast episodes I listen to and books that I read, I knew about inflammation, and I know that sugar does not help by any means. Combine that with an infection that just kept popping back up and it ended up being a kidney infection. It just would not go away, which is not typical for me. I'm very healthy. I don't really have much going on for me, but here I was with this infection that lasted about a month and a chronic tendinitis problem, both of which never really happened to me. And I realized that I had been consuming way more sugar than usual, which is kind of shameful for me and embarrassing because I am a very healthy person overall. But like I said, that's my kryptonite. Yes, my kryptonite, my Achilles heel, all the things that I wish were not a problem. And it was affecting my life so much. And I realized I was not living authentically. And I wanted to change that. So I'm going to tell you 5 simple tips that help me break these bad habits. And then a little bit more about the why and the deeper meaning of all these things. But first, number 1, identify the triggers. So recognize the cues or the situations that prompt that habit. And understanding these triggers can help you anticipate what the situation is and avoid that to develop different responses and build up those different neural pathways. So for example, I mentioned that I just want to have that quick fix before bed when I'm really tired and overwhelmed. After a long day with a big family, I just feel exhausted. So once I identify that that's my problem area, or maybe even right before the kids get home or right after they get home from school, I might want to have a sugary snack when I'm exhausted after having really focused work hours for 8 hours a day or something like that. Well, when I can identify that, there's something I can do about it. And that goes into number 2. Replace those with positive habits. So instead of simply trying to stop a bad habit, focus on substituting it with a healthier or more productive behavior. So I'm going to give you an example in my own life here. Since I'm trying to quit sugar, not completely here, I'm not like taking out of condiments and literally everything I eat, but I am taking out desserts and candy and things like that. So I found that if I have a substitution for those hard days and I just want something that feels comforting and beautiful to me, I can still have those things. Now, I don't usually go searching for sugar-free options and still indulge in a similar lifestyle, but there are moments that I wanted it. So recently I've been making sugar-free mug cakes where they're very simple, but relatively good ingredients, nothing too bad. It's a little bit of honey and coconut oil and cocoa powder, just very minor stuff, and it's just a small portion. And sometimes I have that. Now, is that the best option? Maybe not. And is it a step in the right direction? Absolutely. Replacing those things with positive habits. Another thing I did is I stock up with snacks that I'm excited about instead of those sugary, more processed options. And I have found that I like those things, and it's easier and easier as time goes by. Another thing that I found, you have to experiment with this yourself. I really felt like I had to be very strict for the first couple of months because of how difficult it was. And I didn't want to go back to developing that taste for sugar. But over time, I found that it's not that I want to have a whole bunch of food. It's that I just want that little taste. So almost like pea-sized piece of like bakery items, for example. It's the experience of trying something, enjoying the beauty of it. So sometimes when I really feel like I'm curious about that, I might take a pea-size something. Now, I would not recommend that if you are still very inclined to then overindulge and justify. I wouldn't have been able to do that at first, but now I can take a small amount and say, oh, okay, now I know what it tastes like. I kind of remember. But I'm not eating anywhere near as much to give me a stomach ache. And I'm only doing that maybe once a week, not very often. And it's not really important to me anymore the longer that I go. Number 3, set clear goals. Define specific and achievable goals related to breaking the bad habit. So break it down from larger goals into those smaller, more manageable steps, and then track your progress along the way. Celebrate your success to stay motivated. So for other clients, I've seen them do this when it comes to exercise. They break down this habit, say, of running a marathon, and they break it into smaller things. I'm just going to listen to a podcast during my lunch break and just walk around the office or walk around my neighborhood, whatever that is, and they just do that. And then they slowly build up to, I'm going to run for 5 minutes, but I'm going to walk anytime I need to. And then it's, I'm going to run for a minute and then walk for a minute. And I'm going to do that for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? It's just slow build up of those things. Number 4, create accountability. Share your goals with supportive friends and family members or even a mentor that can provide that encouragement and really hold you accountable. Now, this is where you can even join a support group or find an accountability partner, which I love to have. I think it's very important towards success. Now, for me, it is pretty hard to find an accountability partner for this because it's so against a cultural norm that nobody really wants me to do it. So I kind of have to be my own partner. I wish there were more, and hopefully I will find them in the future, but I'm pretty good at saying self-motivated, but I know many people are not. Okay, the last and final tip. Practice self-compassion. Understand that breaking a habit takes time and effort, and setbacks are a natural part of the process. Now, I could shame myself that sometimes I've taken that pea-sized taste of it, or maybe even a little bigger. Or I could recognize, hey, I'm not perfect yet, but I'm improving every day, and it's okay to adjust things slightly to help me become my best self and get better and better. So when you slip up, acknowledge it and learn from it. So it's that failing forward that we've talked about before, and recommit to your goals. I have a few quotes that I really enjoy. This one almost sounds a little snarky, holier than thou, but I still really like it. Don't let mediocre people talk you out of your dreams. Lions have little in common with sheep. So maybe we feel bad saying, I'm a lion. And yet, we are meant to become our best selves. We really are lions at heart, but maybe we're acting like sheep most of our lives. Check in the show notes, but he has amazing quotes. I found so many good ones by him. When we implement these tips that I just mentioned, these 5 tips, and stay committed to our goals, we can successfully break these bad habits and create those positive changes in our lives. Living intuitively is another important step in this journey. This is something I talk to my clients a lot about. We're so disconnected from our bodies sometimes that it's hard to understand what living intuitively is. And honestly, not just disconnected from our bodies, but also from our spirit. Are we really in tune with what we need spiritually and physically? So it's about making decisions that align with our core values and intuition. And I'm going to talk about more on values next episode and how it applies to marriages. I mention it so much because it is so game-changing in everything we're doing, but it's going to be a fresh approach that you're really going to appreciate. So stay tuned for that. But rather than giving into external pressures and societal expectations, it's really about tuning into who you are authentically and moving forward with more of that clarity and that purpose instead of being that sheep in your life. Aren't you just tired of being the sheep sometimes? Because I know I am. Resistance will arise along the way. Whenever we're striving to become our best self and become more successful and grow more, we're going to encounter that pushback from other people who are more comfortable with that status quo. They don't want you to mess up their equilibrium around you, even if it's a destructive one. But it's really important to stay strong in our convictions and not let the opinions of others deter us from pursuing our dreams. And I've really had to learn that and remember that over and over again. I have to go back to one of my favorite quotes by Marianne Williamson. It just so beautifully said, and I think it applies well to this episode today. She said, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate." Remember the sheep and the lion? Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us. It is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. She says that so beautifully. These words remind us that it's okay to shine brightly and embrace our full potential, even, and maybe especially, if it makes other people uncomfortable. Because again, we were meant to be lions. We are not sheep. Andy Grove says it this way: "The tragedy of life is often not in our failure, but rather in our complacency. Not in our doing too much, but rather in our doing too little. Not in our living above our ability, but rather in our living below our capabilities." That is really profound, isn't it? I often hear like, oh, I don't have enough time. I can't do this. I can't do this. Really, all they're saying is that it's not a priority. And we all have enough time. It's just, what are we prioritizing? Do we not have time because we want to watch 3 episodes on Netflix at night? Or because we have 5 hours of screen time on our phone? It's likely the other things too that are really great, like helping our families and exercising and being spiritual, but it's also those other things. And I have 4 other really good quotes by Metshona again. I'm not even going to attempt his last name, just look in the show notes. But the first one says this: "To avoid enemies, say nothing. To avoid critics, do nothing. To avoid haters, be nothing. But to avoid mediocrity, ignore all." Part of this, my friends, to breaking those bad habits is to ignore everyone else. Avoid mediocrity. The next one he says is this: "Stumbling towards greatness is better than sprinting towards mediocrity." I think that is beautiful. Are you stumbling towards greatness, even if it looks a little messy? Or are you sprinting towards mediocrity? I feel like the vast majority of our society is sprinting towards mediocrity. And how sad that is when we have divinity within us. We all have different belief systems here, but I truly, truly believe that. We were made for more. Okay, the last two that he says. To be ridiculed for your genius is better than to be praised for your mediocrity. So yeah, maybe you guys will make fun of me because of all of these things that I do. Well, maybe not you. You wouldn't be listening to this if you'd make fun of me. But maybe I will be criticized for all these things that I'm doing to try to improve my life and the lives of my clients and the community at large. But it's better than being praised for my mediocrity. And you can apply that to your own life as well. How are you criticized? Well, let it go because it's better than being mediocre. And last but not least, he says, the lonely road to greatness is better than the crowded road to mediocrity. I can attest that it is a lonely road, so much lonelier than I imagined, to continually fight against cultural norms that no longer serve us, to do things that people around you say is crazy, not having sugar or exercising multiple days a week or studying scriptures or going to church or staying really committed in a relationship even when it has its ups and downs or whatever it might be. Anything you do that is different than the mediocrity around you, but it makes you become who you were meant to become is worthwhile. It is better, despite the loneliness of it at times, than that crowded road to mediocrity. Reflect on your own journey of breaking free from these bad habits and embracing your best self. Remember, you are worthy of living a life filled with purpose and joy and fulfillment. And don't forget my favorite quote, this one line. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine. Thank you for listening to this episode today on Fulfillment Therapy. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And please share this episode. We'd love to hear your feedback and continue growing and thriving together. Until next time, my friends, take care and keep striving. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you. No matter what your house or your hair looks like, I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.